Top 10 gemstones that were too sacred to sell. Welcome to Tops. There are gemstones so rare they can't be valued. Others are revered for their power, worn only by kings or buried with the dead. But beyond these, some stones can never be owned, not displayed, not named, and not even mentioned outside sacred rituals. They exist only in temples, sealed crypts, or riverbeds, protected not by fences, but by centuries-old ritual laws. These are objects that have crossed the boundary between the material and the sacred and are never allowed to return. No museum labels them, no collector owns them, and if you've never seen them for sale, there's a reason. Here's a look at the top 10 gemstones that are too sacred to sell. Don't forget to press and hold that like button, leave a comment, and hit subscribe before we begin. Ranked 10th, Selenite, the inscribed light of Esna. The crypt was first recorded in a 1906 field diary now archived at the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris. Its contents were dismissed at the time: remnants of a collapsed limestone ceiling, fragments of alabaster, and what early excavators called sheer gypsum slabs with undecipherable surface abrasions. The exact number of recovered scrolls remains disputed. In 1987, during the restoration of the Temple of Esna in Upper Egypt, ultraviolet scanning revealed a recessed subchamber beneath the southern transept. Inside were 6 polished selenite panels, each over 1 meter in length, etched with lines of glyphs that did not conform to any known liturgical dialect of late-period Egyptian. Unlike most temple texts, these inscriptions lacked directionality. They neither read left to right nor followed the traditional columns. Instead, they curved inwards, spiraling toward the geometric center of each panel. Samples were taken in 1992 for mineralogical confirmation. Fibrous gypsum, specifically monoclinic selenite, with a consistent growth axis and minimal occlusion. No pigment or binding agent was found in the etchings. Under polarized light, the grooves fluoresce faint blue, independent of the host crystal's transparency. Several of the scrolls were boxed and submitted for digital imaging at the University of Tübingen. The project was suspended after an internal review raised ethical objections. According to the final research note, now declassified, the text contained configurations that closely resemble early Proto-Coptic invocations, but diverge in syntax and numeration. Their precise intent remains inaccessible, but they do not appear ornamental or commemorative. Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities has since sealed the chamber. No export permits have been issued. No reproductions, photographic or rubbings, are authorized for academic use. The remaining scrolls are now classified under the Cultural Property Protection Law 117/1983. They are not on public display, they are not for sale, and their text, if it is text, has never been decoded. Ranked 9th. Moldavite, the fragment. No one touched twice. A green fragment. Fire from the sky. Donated without price. The line appears in the 1883 inventory of the Benedictine Abbey of Kremsmünster, under the category Objecta sine categoria, objects without classification, no accompanying sketches, no valuation, no donor name. The fragment was stored for decades in a sealed side chapel accessible only to abbots and custodians of relics. It was not displayed to the public, nor included in any catalog of regional ecclesiastical items. Descriptions passed down orally spoke of a small dark green stone, so dense it felt heavier than its size suggested, with a surface like burned glass. It wasn't until 1921 that the object drew academic attention. Otto V. Hülsen, a German ethnographer, came across a local oral tradition claiming that a shard of fallen fire had been hidden in the monastery to suppress an aberration of sleep. He assumed the tale to be symbolic until he requested access to the chapel archive and was told by the abbot, "The item is not a relic. It is not history. It is a warning." The abbot refused to allow inspection. Hülsen's published notes describe the chapel's reliquary as being wrapped in linen inscribed with hymns unknown in any Benedictine tradition. He noted the presence of scorched wax around the base, suggesting attempts at ritual sealing. He also noted the lack of any cross, saint's name, or apostolic seal. Highly irregular for a reliquary under canon lock. The stone, by best estimation, was Moldavite, a natural tektite formed by the Reese impact event nearly 15 million years ago. Most specimens are bottle green, translucent, and glassy. The Kremsmünster shard, according to Hulsen's informants, was near black, with a grain structure more volcanic than vitreous. No samples were ever taken. No photographs exist. In 1945, as Allied and Soviet forces swept through Austria, the chapel was shuttered. The reliquary disappeared from the monastery records. A notarized statement filed in 1956 by a lay archivist claimed that the item had been moved to familial protection and declared immobile by private ecclesiastical right. That document is still sealed under regional church law. Subsequent requests for examination, filed in 1998, 2011, and again in 2023, were all denied. The responses cited sacramental objects beyond the scope of public stewardship. No auction has ever listed a Moldavite fragment matching this one. No museum claims to have seen it. No geological record verifies its density, its color, or its survival. But in Kremsmünster's oldest chapel, the alcove remains locked, and the line in the ledger remains untouched. Ranked 8th, green jade. Tian, the stone that bound an empire. In 1759, a cache of raw jade boulders was seized along the caravan route from Yarkand to Xi'an. The imperial court had issued strict prohibitions the year before. Any attempt to privately trade jade from Tian, then known in Manchu as Khotan, without imperial license would be prosecuted under the Qing Criminal Code, Section 326, unlawful appropriation of ritual material. The confiscated stones were not smuggled for profit alone. According to a translated court brief preserved in the first historical archives of China, they were intended for private carving into talismans bearing the glyph Shao, longevity, intended for burial in non-imperial tombs. The sentence was exile to Heilongjiang. Tian jade, known for its dense, waxy texture and muted green opacity, was never classified merely as a decorative material. In Qing jurisprudence, it was defined as zhenyu, true jade, and held ritual status in both Confucian state rites and Taoist funerary codes. Ownership outside of sanctioned nobility was not just prohibited, it was regarded as cosmologically disruptive. Unlike gold or silver, jade did not circulate through markets. It moved through decrees. When carved into ceremonial discs, bi, or tubes, kong, it passed not from merchant to client, but from heaven to emperor, emperor to ancestor, and ancestor to spirit. This cycle was not symbolic. It was juridically enacted. The jade itself was not mined in the traditional sense. Boulders were collected seasonally from riverbeds fed by glacial melt. The rights to access these sites were hereditary and monitored by border garrisons. By 1793, any jade not entering the palace workshop bore a distinct countermark of illegitimacy, rendering it unsellable in any state-licensed exchange. No surviving imperial Khitan jade has ever been sold publicly. A few pieces reside in national museums: the Palace Museum in Beijing, the National Palace Museum in Taipei, and 2 in storage at the British Museum, acquired before the 20th century through diplomatic forfeiture, not commerce. No known auction has ever certified an actual Qing-era Tianbi disc from official lineage. The jade remains embedded not only in shrines and tombs, but in a legal architecture that never allowed it to become property. Ranked 7th. Red Beryl. The offering that left no price behind. The earliest reference is neither geological nor commercial. It's oral, passed down in fragments across generations of Paiute and Ute speakers in what is now south-central Utah. The phrase varies slightly by dialect, but the structure is consistent. Blood taken from the fire, returned only in silence. Centuries later, in 1904, mineralogist Maynard Bixby uncovered deep red crystals embedded in rhyolite cavities near the Thomas Range. Initially assumed to be a form of garnet, they were later identified as beryllium aluminum silicate, red beryl. The crystals were rare, tightly structured, and unlike any known gemstone in North America. By 1928, the U.S. Geological Survey confirmed the deposit's limited extent. Less than 1 minnable gram of red beryl existed for every 150,000 grams of host rock. But the mineral's market trajectory stalled, not due to price, due to access. In 1956, a private collector funded an excavation near a known site on tribal designated land. The project was halted mid-phase after a joint request from both tribal elders and the Utah Division of State History. A report filed under code HS4437 stated that several of the crystals matched a pattern long associated with placement rites, rituals involving stone interment for seasonal passage, birth recovery, and death purification. The collectors never retrieved the material. None of it was ever cataloged for auction. None of it has since re-entered the open market. The Bureau of Land Management denied a 1981 attempt to acquire mining rights on adjacent land on the grounds of ritual site protection. In the agency's language, presence of subsurface artifacts and geological objects recognized as embedded within a ceremonial matrix. The crystals in question were never listed as sacred by federal statute. No museum houses them. No public photos exist. Yet every request to collect or display these specific ritual-grade barrels has been denied by tribal resolution, state preservation law, or private withdrawal. Other red barrel specimens, commercially mined at Ruby Violet and elsewhere, continue to circulate, sold, cut, appraised. But the ones interred, invoked, or bound to the rites, they've never carried a price. They've never been owned. They're not for sale. Ranked 6th, Obsidian Mirror of Tezcatlipoca, the vision that was never meant to reflect, a polished disc, 14 centimeters across, stored flat within a cedar reliquary in Oaxaca before 1521. The rim was lined in hematite dust, the underside marked with a single glyph, Itztli, the stone blade aspect of Tezcatlipoca. Spanish accounts mention it briefly during the 1524 tribute inventory of Bishop Zumárraga, but no physical sketch was included. Its existence became verifiable only in 1839, when the item was transferred to London via a private collector with ties to the Anglican Society for Comparative Rights. It appeared briefly in the British Museum's ethnographic study of Mesoamerica in 1866, then was withdrawn from public exhibition within a decade. The mirror itself is carved from volcanic glass native to central Mexico. Black obsidian with low water content, conchoidal fracture patterns, and microcrystalline inclusions visible only under polarized magnification. These details were published in a limited 1912 mineral report by E. Thurston Lowry, who noted optical anomalies along the central plane, likely from repeated ritual polishing. Among Nawa priests, the mirror was not a tool for reflection, but for projection. Positioned flat, it formed the base of a ritual configuration known as tlahuisli, an array involving feathers, maize ash, and carved bones. Within this arrangement, it was believed that the god Tezcatlipoca could be glimpsed or heard during specific lunar intervals. The device was not passed through familial lineage. It was held communally, kept by the Tilanamacak, or fire priests, and wrapped in layers of ocelot hide. It was neither offered nor granted. Upon conquest, it was sealed. According to institutional records, its current location is within restricted holdings, access limited to senior research staff and religious consultants. An attempt to acquire the mirror for the 2019 Empire and Ritual exhibit at the V&A Museum was declined. The refusal was not based on fragility, ownership dispute, or export restrictions. The denial cited in the internal curatorial memo read, "The object is entangled in unresolved liturgical status. It may not be activated, displayed, or interpreted outside of the prescribed context. No reproductions exist. No valuation has been assigned. Its surface has not seen light since the reign of Queen Victoria." Ranked 5th, Lapis Lazuli, the blue that could not cross the temple gate. In room 45 of the British Museum, behind glass tinted to reduce light degradation, a fragment of inlaid lapis from the Royal Cemetery of Ur sits inside a reconstructed lyre panel. Its provenance is clear. Beryl PG 800, circa 2600 BCE. But what's absent from the display, what no museum has ever acquired, is a full ceremonial brick carved entirely from lapis, recovered during the 1934-35 season and immediately transferred to the Iraq Museum's restricted archive. That object, roughly 19 by 12 centimeters, was one of 4 retrieved from the lower foundation trench of a temple structure identified in field reports as Building RQL. Each brick bore a single cuneiform sign, uniformly inscribed, N, denoting the presence or authority of a temple priestess. The lapis was natural, sourced from Badakhshan in northeastern Afghanistan, over 1,500 kilometers from the site, transported along routes guarded by armed intermediaries under royal commission. According to the site's director at the time, British archaeologist Leonard Woolley, 2 of the bricks were removed and stored separately from the rest of the materials. When the excavation team attempted to document the third under artificial light, it fractured spontaneously along 3 axes. The official reason given was thermal stress. The team ceased further handling immediately. None of the 4 was ever offered for study abroad. The director of the Iraq Department of Antiquities, Dr. Selim Hassan, issued a standing order in 1935 declaring that the bricks could not leave Mesopotamian territory. Not for research, not for exhibition, not for sale. The bricks, according to cultural policy documents filed under Archive number 128/1940-MES, were deemed ritual substrates. Their removal was categorized as alteration of temple energy alignment under early 20th century Iraqi antiquities law, modeled partially on Ottoman conservation codes. As of 2025, they remain in temperature-controlled storage in Baghdad. Photographs exist only in infrared scans conducted during structural monitoring in 2008. Lapis Lazuli continued to appear in royal death masks, inlays, and headdress rosettes across Sumer, Akkad, Egypt, and later Persia. But within temple complexes, when cut as foundational elements, it was no longer luxury material. It was designated. Nothing with that designation has ever entered a private collection. Nothing was ever priced, and none has ever crossed the temple gate twice. Ranked 4th, Golconda, the diamonds that were never bought, only taken. The original extraction site is no longer traceable. No quarry, no shaft, no surviving tool marks. The Golconda diamond fields of Eastern Deccan, now divided between Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, yielded their final recorded stones under the Qutb Shahi dynasty. Still, the exact locus of the Koh-i-Noor's discovery remains undocumented. The stone itself, as it first appeared in written history, was not purchased but surrendered. In 1739, following Nader Shah's sack of Delhi, it was removed from the Mughal treasury, not by transaction but by conquest. Its name, meaning Mountain of Light, was reportedly spoken by a court poet as the gem was lifted from the peacock throne. No record indicates that any sum of money was exchanged, requested, or even proposed. What remains consistent across centuries is not price but ritual. The diamond was never passed through ordinary hands. In both Mughal and later Sikh tradition, it was worn only by rulers ordained under divine mandate. Any change in possession required not a deed, but a symbolic act: submission, abdication, or blood oath. When the British East India Company annexed Punjab in 1849, they drafted Article 3 of the last Treaty of Lahore to transfer the Koh-i-Noor to the Queen of England as part of political surrender. The clause did not involve value appraisal. It was not part of the indemnity. It was a ceremonial annexation. The Hope Diamond, while structurally unrelated, shares the same lineage of treatment. Originating from the same Golconda region, the 45.5 2-carat stone followed a parallel trajectory, seized, reshaped, and never openly sold. Its early history is fragmented, possibly extracted in the 17th century, perhaps earlier, but it too surfaced only through seizure, inheritance, or legal forfeiture. No Golconda diamond of royal lineage has ever entered the commercial gem trade by standard means. None has passed through open market valuation at the time of its transfer. Most survive either in museum collections, unpriced, unappraised, or in private holdings never declared for auction. What binds them is not rarity, but classification. Within royal inventories, these stones were tokens of continuity, not property. Their movement marked the death of dynasties. Their possession was not ownership, it was an occupation. Ranked 3rd, Piprahwa Gem Relics. the stones buried with no name to claim them. In 1898, a British landowner named William Claxton Pepe authorized the clearing of a low mound on his estate near the Indo-Nepal border. Beneath it lay a stone coffer, sealed in stucco and carved with Brahmi script. Inside were 5 soapstone reliquaries, nested one within another, and at the center, fragments of charred bone, interred with over 300 gemstones, garnets, sapphires, rock crystals, and small pearls. An inscription on the lid read, in early Prakrit, "These are the relics of the Blessed One, the Buddha, given by his Sakya brethren." The stones were not offered to temples. They were not sold, documented, or distributed. They were sealed for eternity, ritually and materially, in a form of veneration that excluded ownership. British authorities at the time transported a portion to the Indian Museum in Calcutta. Another portion remained in the possession of the Pepe family in England, kept privately under non-commercial terms. For over a century, they were neither priced nor shown publicly. But in 2024, Sotheby's Hong Kong quietly listed the Pepe collection for auction, Buddhist reliquary gemstones circa 2nd century BCE. The listing triggered diplomatic protest from the Indian Ministry of Culture, which cited the Antiquities and Art Treasures Act, 1972, and UNESCO's 1970 Convention on Illicit Cultural Property. In May 2025, the auction was suspended. A joint statement from India and the UK recognized the collection as sacred relics outside the bounds of trade. No further listings were submitted. No replicas were sanctioned. No price was ever made public. The stones, anonymously cut, unmounted, and unbranded, carry no provenance beyond the stupa itself. They have no appraisable clarity or color grade. Their value is not gemological, it is liturgical. Not even the British Museum, in its acquisition request from 1956, was granted full custody. They remain under legal and spiritual quarantine. To be shown would be a gesture of devotion. To be sold would be desecration. Ranked second, black Tektite, ritual use Thailand, the stone that cannot cross a border. Not classified as a gem in most mineralogical registers. Not mounted, not polished. Yet for over 6 centuries, a specific form of black Tektite, glassy, pitted, and often mistaken for slag, has been encased in gilded amulets across Thailand, Laos, and northern Cambodia. Known locally as Luknimit Din Fei, earthborn child of the sky, these stones were not traded. They were sanctified. Geochemically, they originate from the Australasian strewn field, likely ejected during a meteorite impact over 700,000 years ago. The highest concentrations are found in Thailand's Ubon, Ratchathani, Sisaket, and Nong Khai provinces. But not every Tektite is accepted into ritual. Only those uncovered during the consecration of a Ubasat, a Buddhist ordination hall, can be selected. And once designated, they are sealed in a vessel, buried beneath the primary altar, and entered into the temple record. A 1953 excavation by the Department of Religious Affairs uncovered 27 such stones during renovations at Wat Sakayo. Their removal, though initially for structural study, prompted intervention by the Supreme Sangha Council. The rocks were returned within 72 hours. Thailand's 1961 Act on Ancient Monuments and Artifacts prohibits the export of religious objects deemed prafutarup, or embodied symbols of the Buddha's presence. Though the act was designed for statuary and paintings, court interpretation has, in at least 2 rulings, extended protection to consecrated tektites. In 2007, a Hong Kong-based collector attempted to purchase 3 temple-certified meteorites from a northeastern broker. The Thai Fine Arts Department seized the shipment at Don Mueang Airport, citing forged provenance and illicit removal from active ritual grounds. The case was dropped quietly, but the stones were never returned. They remain in state storage, unreleased, unpriced. Unlike Moldavite or Libyan desert glass, both sold freely through mineral markets, these black tektites never appear in gem fairs. No Thai monastery withholds them for commerce. Their function is concluded at the moment of interment. They are not relics of personal devotion, but nodes of ritual geometry, intended to stay beneath the feet of the ordained. They do not leave the Abasat. They do not cross borders, and no legal market has ever recognized their sale. In first place, Shaligram, the fossil no devotee ever bought. There is no permit for extraction, no mine, no lot number. The Shaligram is not harvested, it is found. And only in one place, the Kali Gandaki River of Mustang, Nepal. Embedded in jet-black river stones, spiral fossils of extinct ammonites emerge without cutting, polishing, or carving. Their form, coiled and complete, is preserved by nature alone. Among Vaishnavite Hindus, this specific fossil is revered as the Svarupa, or natural embodiment, of the god Vishnu. By canon, no idol, painting, or sculpture is needed where a shaligram is present. The stone is the deity, and unlike temple murtis, which are consecrated through ritual, the shaligram requires no human intervention. Its sanctity is inherent. Texts from the Garuda Purana and Skanda Purana specify the types. Chakra-bearing spirals represent Narayana. Multiple whorls are Vasudeva. Deep-set ridges signify Krishna in cosmic form. They are not symbolic assignments. They are identities. No trade is permitted. No price may be set. By dharmic law, to sell a shaligram is to incur mahapataka, a great sin, equivalent to breaking sacred vows. The Manusmriti lists it among forbidden acts for twice-born castes. Despite that, black market cases have surfaced. In 2016, Indian Customs intercepted a shaligram fossil mislabeled as marine rock specimen at the Indo-Nepali border. The stone was seized and returned to the Ganges as restitution. That same year, Nepal's Department of Archaeology began enforcing its Ancient Monument Preservation Act to include riverbeds of religious significance. The region was formally designated ritual terrain, exempt from commercial usage. No museum holds a verified shaligram. No gemstone appraisal lab will grade one. Even replicas are discouraged, as no artisan is permitted to carve Vishnu's form into a fossil. In Vedic ritual, when a devotee receives a shaligram, the act is not an exchange. It is ordination. The stone is wrapped in cloth, bathed in tulsi water, and placed above eye level. It is never worn, never displayed, and never given to the uninitiated. The river yields only to those who arrive with empty hands. And once touched, the shaligram ceases to be a stone. It becomes present. They were never cut for light, never priced for markets, never passed from hand to hand. These gemstones did not enter history through wealth or fashion. They were placed beneath shrines, inside tombs, or into rivers, not to be seen again, but to remain. Some were sealed by priesthoods that no longer exist. Others are still guarded by law, by lineage, or by silence. No museum owns them in full. No appraisal can assign them meaning, and no trade has ever made them more complete. If these stones still hold power, it's not because they shine, but because somehow they were left untouched. You've just seen 10 gemstones that were never meant to be sold. Some will never surface again. Some were never supposed to. Let us know which one resonates with you in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.